You're hooked on a podcast.
6-part true crime documentary by the West Australian. I didn't do it, which means it's actually good.
The biggest drug seizure in Australian history.
It's got everything. Mexican cartels, hapless drug couriers, the DEA swaggering around, Aussie cops in a jurisdictional dick measuring contest, and enough cocaine to make Uma Thurman in Pulp Fiction blush.
I said, goddamn!
And best of all, this international criminal debauchery happened in a sleepy, isolated town on the edge of a sleepy, isolated country.
There's a story behind this story.
The first story about this story came out on March 4, 2023. Back then, we'd heard that 2.4 tonnes of cocaine with a street value of $1 billion had been seized by the DEA between Australia and Mexico. That's enough coke to supply the whole of Australia for half a year, so a good bit of intelligence work. Good police work became great police work when the DEA and Australian cops realised the people who were going to receive the shipment didn't know it had been seized.
Because drug barons segment the process.
That's the modern structure of the international illicit drug trade. Each link in the supply chain doesn't know who they're getting the drugs from or who they're giving them to. They just get instructions that the package will be here at this time and you take it there at that time.
I have a package for you.
That way, if one person gets sprung, they can't get flipped by the cops, so detectives can roll them up the chain to the bosses.
You're on a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know.
In Operation Beach, the police turned this investigative weakness into a strength. When the DEA had seized the coke, they also found material that showed half the drugs were going to be dumped off the coast of Perth. WA police substituted the seized cocaine for plaster of Paris and pushed it off the back of a boat 40 nautical miles, that's about 80 k's, off Perth, strung together with GPS buoys and left floating on the surface of the water.
And the cops then sat and waited.
And waited and waited, and eventually this boat came along. It wasn't a great time of year to be a drug courier, to be honest, because the 5 crew members on board the Catalina encountered some mountainous seas when they were searching for their cargo.
I'm getting seasick already.
They went out from Hillary's a few times. On the last return, they crashed into some rocks at the marina.
So they called for backup.
Another 3 members of the syndicate goes to the boat ramp and launches a speedboat called Cool Runnings.
What exactly does it mean?
Cool Runnings means peace be the journey.
Cool running!
Cool running!
They head off in search of the drugs, which they find.
That the extra payload causes some steering problems.
Cool Runnings ends up beached 70 kilometres north of Perth. I'd say it can't get worse than being stranded in the middle of the night on a deserted beach with 1.2 tonnes of fake drugs aboard a boat that won't go, but at 2 a.m. it did. The Tactical Response Group had been watching the entire thing from the sand dunes and soon had these idiots in bracelets. The crew of the Catalina eventually come to the realisation Cool Runnings isn't coming back to Hillary's, so they peel their boat off the rocks and go looking for it. When they find the unmanned vessel on the beach, they tow it back out to sea, transfer the cocaine onto the bigger boat, and just when they thought they were home and hosed back at Hillary's...
The cops swooped.
Yep. Subsequent arrests across Perth saw a lot of cash seized and 9 people in the lockup. That's on top of the crew from the not-so-cool Runnings. Properly great police work.
But again, there's an even bigger story behind that story.
Turns out Australia's biggest ever drug operation almost never was, not because of faulty intelligence, clever defence lawyers or evasion by the cartel. It almost collapsed before it got off the ground because the Australian Federal Police got their noses out of joint that the DEA had shut them out and gone direct to the state coppers. It was an almighty jurisdictional shitfight that went all the way to America's ambassador to Australia and has poisoned the relationship between the DEA and the AFP and the AFP and WAPO. To get the inside story on that and also everything else that goes on behind the white line, check out the podcast on Lister. I'm Ben Harvey.